Hello, this is Dan Ferrisi, Group Editor, Commercial and Security with Commercial Integrator here at Infocomm 2025 in Orlando, working in partnership once again with the HD basically Alliance. And we're even talking right now about USB-C. The name of this panel is USB-C is Join the Meeting. We have some great panelists here. Thank you so much again for joining me, Keith Kennedy and Jeremy Vierck and Matt Snell. Appreciate all of your perspectives here today about USB-C. So why don't we get started with the question? Whoever wants to jump in on this can feel free to do so. What do you think integrators and designers should know about differences in USB-C implementation?
Yeah, differences in implementation. I brought this prop along on purpose. This simple connector behind it is so complex, and you have to be really mindful of what's going into the design, understanding what the customer is looking for, what features of USB-C do they need, and how you transport them, and are you transporting them at full bandwidth? How many tiers you have. There's a lot of things that go in behind, such a simple connector,
Yeah, not every USB-C cable is created equally, right? Just because it has the connector does not mean that it's has the same capability as another cable. Some carry video, some carry power, some carry only data, and so you really have to be mindful in knowing what you're buying and what you're speccing in and what you're getting, that the cabling alone is going to could make or break an installation based on what you're trying to implement.
So I'll answer this from the perspective of the hardware manufacturer. So obviously all the points you've mentioned are excellent and have to be taken into consideration. But then when you design a piece of hardware, which is what we do, we are an OEM, ODM manufacturer for lots of different brands across the globe. What is going on inside the products that the cable is being connected to? Okay, so if you have all that information, if the cable's being designed correctly, then you need to make sure that you can handle full bandwidth data, full bandwidth audio and video, supplying Ethernet, supplying PD charging power. Other things are now we have so many different sources of audio that could be at your disposal in the room. You could have a hardwired mic coming into the device. You could have something connected up to at the other end of that cable, or if it's an HD-based T-equipped device and it's being extended at the other device that's at the other end, or it could be a Dante device that's on the network being brought in through the Ethernet connector. You need to have the appropriate audio routing circuitry that's inside of that, as well as the processing power, the REST-based API, and all of that, so that it can be exposed and used in that room to make sure we can all take advantage of that situation.
Absolutely. So Matt, Jeremy, do you want to talk a little bit about USB-C based endpoints and any kind of pitfalls that might materialize in specifying or installing this?
Yeah, with so many capabilities with USB-C, you really have to be mindful of the entire signal chain. When you're connecting a 4K camera, for example, you want to get that full 4K at the other end. What are you connecting it to? Do you, the extension of that, are you plugging it into a hub? The cables that are used, you have to use all of the right equipment so that makes it all the way there. Doesn't get downgraded along the way to a USB 2.0 camera. So you really need to be thoughtful about every step of the way.
Yeah, the good news is with all these challenges that we're sort of discussing is USB-C brings a great opportunity for the whole industry and for all of us, because now with a single cable, we can really do audio and video, multi-stream video, data. We can do so much with just that simple, single, small, tiny connector. And of course, we have to be aware of all of these things, but this is a really big step forward. This is a real advantage going forward. And knowing the difference between USB-C as a connector is a different animal than USB 3 as a transport technology, which is different than USB 2 as a transport technology, and DisplayPort multi-stream. right? All of these things travel on the connector, but they're different than the actual physical connector itself. The good news is this has been well thought out. It's been in the market now for 10 years plus, and the AV industry is able to now take advantage of a lot of these things. When it comes to implementation on the hardware side, you're bringing a consumer connector into a pro AV world. You now need to think about, oh, I need to lock these connectors down. They need to be screw-in connectors. They need to resist the pulling of that inevitably happens on every conference table. And then when you're building a larger installation, what sort of extension technologies, right? That's what Valens brings to the market is extension of the USB 3, extension of the USB 2, extension of the video, because these technologies all have different constrictions on distance and bandwidth, and so you have to take advantage of that with our technology to extend them.
All well said. I don't know that I have anything else to add on that.
So you mentioned extension, for example. I'd like to burrow a little bit deeper into infrastructure planning, deployment decisions. What is going to ensure reliable USB-C connectivity? What should people be thinking about on the infrastructure level, on the deployment level? What can they be thinking about?
Well, obviously, cable construction is always important. So making sure that the cable is constructed so that it works no matter which way it's plugged in. Believe it or not, I've gone into conference rooms where I plug it in one way and it doesn't work. You plug it in the other way and it does work. And that's not supposed to happen with a USB-C connection. Believe it or not, that still does happen. Making sure that the cable can handle the power and the distance that's being transported. And then that's where the HD-based technology comes in and is perfect for the rest of this. So we can have the appropriate Cat6 and properly terminated infrastructure in place with the extension technology built into the devices that are in each end of that connection, and that's super important.
Yeah, and the only thing I would add to that is being mindful of, it can be easy to stack USB solutions. Well, we need more ports. We need a, C to A, and people just find that USB-C is so easy, to connect different devices to. But you want to leverage something that's seamless, invisible to some degree, like HD-based T, to extend that connectivity so that the user has a great experience and doesn't have to flip the cable and they just plug in. And it's as if they were right there at the far end device.
You mentioned tiers. We keep talking tiers, that's in different devices.
Yes. And on the technology side, tiers. You have to be mindful of tiers. And when you add these devices, how many tiers is built into that device? And you have to add up the tiers of all the devices in that signal chain. And you can cause some real problems, when you have too many tiers. It doesn't work. And then maybe when you're on the edge of having too many tiers, we've seen problems where it can be flaky. So you really have to be thoughtful about that design.
And I'll just add to that we're just at the beginning of USB-C in the AV world, right? We're going to see so much growth in this area in the next 5 years as USB-C starts to replace more and more USB-A, USB-B, but also HDMI ports. And, we will more and more live in a USB-C world because the connector is so capable, so small, and the ability to get 100 watts of power and distribute so much bandwidth on that. We're making new products to take advantage of that. Our manufacturers are making more products. The cable companies are doing better. So there's going to be a huge opportunity for growth in this area in the next 5+ years.
So you mentioned the next 5+ years. Obviously, everyone wants robust, flexible, supportable systems, but they also want them to be long-lasting. Are there infrastructure decisions that can be made? So you're not just thinking about today, thinking about tomorrow, but thinking about the 3 to 5 year time horizon. What on an infrastructure level can be done today to build out that secure feature?
That can be a real challenge, especially with some of the bandwidths that people are trying to push, with USB-C. Shielded Cat6A is fantastic, of course, when you start getting out, further into the future, higher resolutions, higher frame weights, that's where fiber comes in, and you need to consider that as well, because for me personally, that's the only technology I consider future-proof. Really, I've been around long enough that that's how I see fiber. That the bandwidth that's available there. But interested what you see on the hardware side, Keith.
Well, definitely, higher forms of shielded and tightly twisted pair category cabling is at minimum what is needed. Okay, and fiber definitely. I always recommend that people are pulling fiber in their installations to make sure that they can take advantage of future technologies, because obviously HD-based doesn't work on fiber today. It can be made to work on fiber. We've done some bespoke designs where we have taken the technology and pushed it over fiber. But having that in place and making sure that you have multiple cables, making sure that you maybe have raceways in place, conduits, ways to re-pull things, because you never know what's going to happen. Obviously there are things that we know about today, but there are things that are coming down the future that are still kind of a little bit murky. They're even like power delivery. Matt and I were having dinner last night, and we were talking about, okay, with POH and the PoE, there are limits to what you can do with 100 watts going over that. And if you do supply 100 watts, that cable's going to be pretty warm. The boxes are going to be warm, and there's a lot of things that you have to manage inside of that. Well, there might be some new technologies coming out down the road where maybe we can supply more power and do it without generating so much heat. Maybe we might need another cable for it. Maybe we might be able to do it with the cable that's in place now, but stay tuned for that.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. And I'll add, that's the great thing about HD-based T, always surprising us, bringing out new solutions that we'd never thought possible. So, yeah.
Yeah, no, that's exactly right. I think the opportunity for us to continue to take advantage of all of that capability of that connector, because really that's what we're talking about is transition to using more and more USB-C as a connector. It gives us an opportunity to bring more bandwidth to the video, more power to the cable, and so that's I think a great opportunity for all of us to continue to innovate in our designs and our installations.
Well, Matt, Jeremy, to Keith, I really appreciate all of your perspective. Any closing thoughts, anything I've not already keyed you up to speak about relative to USB-C and the important role it is now playing?
I mean, it's definitely here for the meeting. That's for sure. I've already had 3 client meetings today, and every one of them referenced the fact that now this is really the de facto connector. These other 2, the HDMI and the regular USB host, are becoming the 5 to 10% outliers. I remember just a few years ago, that was how we talked about VGA. So it's definitely here. We definitely want to follow all these steps and plan for it. And the HD-based T Alliance and the underlying Valens technology is definitely a great partner and a great player in the industry to provide us with distance transport solutions and other problem-solving technologies that we use in the products that we build on a daily basis.
Yeah, the one thing I'll add is education. Educating customers, educating our employers, integrators, educate your team members, your engineers, your technicians. Yes, this connector is very simple, but everything behind it is pretty complex, and you need to understand that technology and understand, to your point, Keith, having partners like HD-based T, Valens, their solutions, how they work really well, and they're professionally made. They're not workaround tricks of technology and whatnot, so that I'll really press that education point for everyone.
Rock solid.
Yeah, rock solid solutions.
Yeah, and I'll just finish that with, HD-based T has always been about cable consolidation, cable simplification, overcoming the pain points of wired connectivity by bringing all these different interfaces together into a single cable. And that was HDMI and USB and so much more into a single category cable. USB-C sort of is just an extension of that. It brings all of that onto a single connector in a single cable, so it plays really well into what HD-based T has always been about. And from a user's perspective, they no longer have to plug in 3 or 4 cables into a host. They just get to plug in one single cable, a USB-C, and then we'll take care of the extension. We'll take care of everything else on the back end of that. I think it's USB-C has joined the meeting, I think is a perfect title for this, because that's exactly what we're seeing in the meeting room with bring your own device and bring your own meeting. And it's exactly what customers want, and I think we're all delivering it.
There's no doubt USB-C has joined the meeting, and thank you so much, Matt and Jeremy and Keith, for kind of illuminating this increasing role USB-C is playing and answering all my questions. Really appreciate the time today. My name is Dan Ferrisi, Group Editor for Learning on Security with Commercial Integrator, partnering once again with our friends at the HD-based Alliance booth here at Infocomm 2025 in Orlando. We'll catch you soon.